Yeah.
The following podcast has been brought to you by the Green Door Network.
All right, that's enough.
I just picture Hogan walking down the aisle with the belt.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd like to picture him doing other things with the belt. Anyways, welcome to Juice Pro Wrestling Podcast, Episode 9, for life. This week, we kind of got a crowd in the studio here. With me and Sret and the Savage today is Harry for Hire. What's up, Harry? How you doing? All right. Silent Assassin. We got Big Ed the Assassin back on the show again. How you doing, Ed?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. And helping in the continuation of the most killer crossover in the universe and all of podcasting and entertainment is Joey Kane from Musically Meditated. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh man, no problem, guys.
How's that crossover though? Is that AI crossover or what?
What's AI?
Man, this crossover will make your knees.
Remember when he crossed over Jordan? though? That was.
I don't.
No one crosses
this.
over. I don't remember that shit.
Recall
He
this.
broke. He broke Joe. Yeah, he broke Jordan's ankles. I'm getting.
Anyways,
yeah,
speaking of breaking ankles and shit, today,
Let's break them ankles.
today's a very special episode for me, and I think for everybody in this room and anybody listening, because this goes back to something that kind of was the second boom in wrestling. Like, kind of everybody talks about Attitude Era and this and that, and well, for all you smart marks out there, the Attitude Era is what sparked the revival of wrestling in the 90s. It was the group we're getting ready to talk about, the New World Order, or the NWO. So yeah, we're gonna start right off the bat. Just get into that. We'll go over a brief history of the guys and their appeal and their effect on the business and pop culture and everything. So we'll start off with back in the day, WCW was like what, 93, 94? WCW. They weren't doing so hot. You know, you had guys like Sting and Lex Luger and all that. Well, over at WWF. WWE, whatever you want to fucking call it. They had a couple of huge talents by the name of Razor Ramon and Diesel, a.k.a. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, that were defecting to WCW. They were better paid. WCW was owned by Ted Turner, so, Eric Bischoff, the guy running the joint at the time, had an open checkbook. Pretty much get whoever you can get. And
the New York Yankees of wrestling.
Yeah, give them guaranteed contracts. And that was the first time that shit happened in, like, wrestling. Like, when Hall and Nash went over to WCW and got these written contracts, like, for so many appearances per year, and they're getting, like, millions of dollars, or at least $1 million, just, to show up and do their thing. And then, they had so much stroke and power that whenever WCW would hire another big name, written into their contracts was like, okay, if you're going to pay these guys X and X amount, then our salary has to go up.
That Ted Turner money, man.
Yeah, smart businessmen, Yeah. But anyways, so getting into that, as a young kid watching WCW, and at the time, the early, mid-'90s, after the whole golden era of wrestling, it was kind of flaking out as far as WWF wise, it wasn't cool anymore. They were too much of the over the top fucking
good guys, the good guy characters.
Yeah, the good guy, bad guy shit. You had a dumpster, a guy who was a trash man, Duke the Dumpster Droese.
Very bubblegum.
Yeah,
bubblegum.
Yeah. So and going to WCW, they didn't have much of that. They just had like killer in-ring action, and some of the stuff they had was a little silly like that. We've talked about Arachnaman before. But to throw this to you, back in the day when wrestling, everybody knew it was fake, it was fixed, but there was still something. And I how old was I at the time? Like, we're all probably around like the same age, so
early teens, man. Probably
early teens, something like that. It was hard to tell what was a shoot, what was real, and what wasn't. I mean, there was still somewhat of a kayfabe in wrestling at the time. And I like to think we're probably the last generation that really experienced that. Because now kids just grow up and there's no argument of whether it's fake or not. It's just everybody's always known. Yeah. But I remember being real little and there was like, you didn't really know, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the WCW, NWO era, like you couldn't really tell.
Right.
And it was really raw.
It was raw and it was reality based. And so getting to my point, I'm sitting there watching WCW Monday Nitro one day. and through the crowd comes Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon. And at that time, you got to remember, there's no like social media, there's no real internet-based wrestling community like there is now. Everybody just runs their fucking mouths, and most of it is
everything's all speculation and like Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and like that's about it. I mean,
that's where you got your news, you know. So you didn't know that like what was going on because literally the week before you saw Razor Ramon wrestling at whatever it was, a pay-per-view or house show or Raw, whatever it was. And then here he comes in character, walking through the crowd in WCW. And I'll always forget, it was Larry Zbyszko. Or I'll never forget. Larry Zbyszko, like, oh, what's he doing here? You know, like, they couldn't say the name Razor Ramon, but you knew. And he got in the ring, he's like, hey, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
Yep.
And it was like, what the hell, dude? Like, are they finally... Because when you were a little kid, it was always like the dream thing, which they eventually got to and failed on, the whole invasion, WCW versus WWF.
Yep.
You know? So me as a little kid, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, there's something going on. You know, I mean, obviously at the time you had no idea something like the NWO was going to happen. And they lead up to, well, he's going to bring in his next guy, his buddy. He had a big friend. And I remember the promo of Bischoff's cut. He's like, well, where is he? Where's your guy? And then Scott Hall, he's doing
that.
Turn around, it turns around, and Kevin Nash, Diesel, was there. And it was another huge shocker, like, what the hell is going on?
But he wouldn't use his name. It was
right.
Just,
they couldn't use their name because of legalities and all that.
How'd they come up with the idea to use their real name? Do you know that? Like,
I think it was just Bischoff, because the whole idea from the NWO came from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, Bischoff had seen a group out in New Japan that was... kind of gave him the idea to form like a heel group within an organization that's kind of trying to take over, which had never really been done in American wrestling at that time. You had stables, like the Four Horsemen and shit like that, but they were never trying to be their own promotion within a promotion. You know what I'm saying? They were NWA, WCW guys, but they were just trying to win all the belts.
Yep.
Whereas the NWO storyline was based on essentially a hostile takeover, like gang warfare type stuff.
Which eventually led to them getting NWO sold out, their own pay-per-view.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Real quick, to add on to that.
Talking to Mike.
So did anybody else enjoy the counterfeit Razor Ramon?
Oh, yeah. No, the fake Razor and Diesel.
but the fake Stings suck too.
Yeah, bogus Sting, NWO Sting.
I enjoyed them. I know, like, I knew that they weren't them, but I was just like, this is sort of funny. It was so ridiculous.
I could get that. I could see that, but I didn't think it was that ridiculous. It was kind of like
Kane the fake
pissed me off.
Diesel?
Yeah, Kane was, yeah.
But it was just like, they were just like that. Oh man, like I just remember everybody just ripping on WWE.
Oh, that's how bad they were. And so
it's just like they were so insulting, but I love those characters just because like how horrible, like they were.
It was definitely a dig.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, because they knew what was going on. And then this is at the time, you got to figure WCW had already signed Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, most of the older aging stars from WWF, but were still huge draws. And so around this time, Hall and Nash are in, and they're talking about how they're going to do a hostile takeover. They're going by their original names, which I thought was cool. Hall and Nash to this day still sounds like some gangsta ass shit.
Hall and Oates.
Cue up that Wolfpack music.
It was gangster.
No, but you remember when they would walk in on the house shows to the Fugees?
Yeah.
That was like
Killing Him Softly or Killing Me Softly. This song, I think that
was Ready or Not. Like,
oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
But what was cool is like that was another first. Like,
right.
You don't. Like outside of probably ECW though, you didn't hear like these mainstream guys that like sort of a peek into that world, like because we didn't have social media back then, but it's like we didn't know what goes on at house shows,
right?
Like there was no
you had to go there. You had to fucking go.
So for us to find out that they do stuff like this was like huge, even though we're like, oh my gosh, like that's
made them really relatable, really like
absolutely
hip, really
so
cool.
Little things like that, like that's like
and people have to realize back then in this time, I mean, you weren't going back once again to social media and everything nowadays, where you can easily influence people. It wasn't like that back then, so it was really genuine when something like that would happen, and you'd be like, man, dude, like. Fuck that WWF shit. They got all these like cartoony comic book character guys, and these dudes are just real, coming out with that swagger, dude. And tapping into what was hip at the time. And so, anyways, getting back to Hall and Nash coming out and leading up to them, saying we're going to have a third member I think it was at Bash at the Beach they were supposed to debut. And everybody was speculating on who that would be. And I'll go back to that night. This was Bash at the Beach 94, I believe. 94, 95. And so it was Hall and Nash and the mystery partner versus, what was it, Lex Luger, Sting, and Macho Man. And Macho Man's one of the last guys getting beat up on, or some shit, or he's beating up on Hall and Nash, and and it's like towards the ass end of the match, and everybody's like, well, who's the third member? Who's the third member? Or that's what it was. It was Macho Man getting beat up by Hall and Nash, and then out comes Hogan. And I remember sitting there as a kid, like, at that moment, it clicked on me. Because, no, I don't give a fuck who you say you are and what you think you know about wrestling. Nobody in their lives ever saw that turn coming. From Hulkamania and everything that he was and did, and as big as a hero comic book guy as he was, that, to me, has to be one of the biggest holy shit moments in sports or sports entertainment ever.
When he was walking down, wasn't it Heenan say, but whose side is he on?
Yeah, that's what he said. Whose side is he on?
And they're like, what?
Well, Tony Schiavone.
And red and yellow, too.
He was.
Oh, yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
And I immediately said, I was like, he's the third guy.
Yeah.
Just kind of spewing it off, like kind of hoping it wasn't, because at the time it was like,
You wanted him to be your good boy. Like the good guy.
I was a
when you were
huge,
kid.
we were all, I mean, who wasn't a huge Hogan fan in this room as a kid, So he comes in, and Macho Man's on his back, and he's just like, looking around, and then he drops the fucking leg a couple times on Macho Man. And
Dude,
I was like,
it was
my
the shirt
God.
rip. It was a shirt rip. Everybody went crazy. And then he goes right in the corner.
Dude, remember all the trash they were throwing in the ring, dude? All the fans, people were pissed.
Like, I wonder if that was staged or no. Probably not.
No, the trash throwing
That was
wasn't.
so organic. That was
it was so great because,
that was
dude,
hatred. Like, that's
that's
pure
awesome.
hatred.
Oh, yeah.
but you got to realize Hogan, his shtick had worn thin at that time. I remember watching WCW when he was still the red and yellow. He was in WCW at that point for at least
Thunder
a year
in
or two.
Paradise.
Yeah.
Thunder in Paradise. Who remembers that?
Thunder in Paradise.
Well, and that was the thing. It was getting old.
The most underrated part of that segment when that turned was Scott Hall's outfit. That jean jacket outfit was
That Canadian tuxedo.
the Canadian tuxedo.
That Canadian tux,
like,
baby.
only Scott Hall could push it.
Sweat and rock some Canadian tuxes.
Hell yeah.
That
Dude, you should. Sorry.
What was like? You know what I miss about like the wrestlers' dresses back then? Like how they dressed. Like they all would tuck in their shirts, no matter.
And they all had
what
fanny packs.
And the fanny.
Yeah, fanny
man.
packs
Yeah.
and tucked in shirts.
It was like that Miami Roid guy look or something, like on the beach.
So
with jorts.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
and ponytails and mullets.
Jorts and those those
cocaine.
Oakley blade like those blade sunglasses. They would always wear too.
Yeah, those are the best. Those old Oakleys.
So to get back on point here, Hogan, he ends up being the third man, and the fans are thinking, he's like, you fans can stick it. He's like, you had the audacity to boo me one more time.
You could stick it, brother.
Yeah. So you saw another side, and probably everybody says Vince McMahon. I mean, that's hard point to argue as far as being the greatest heel. But Hulk Hogan, to me, is the best babyface and the best heel that ever was in the business, dude. Because once he turned and became Hollywood, he did every little cheap
was
little
rotten,
fucking thing he
dude,
could do.
yeah.
He was a rotten little. Well, he wasn't little. Had the largest arms in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was dirty.
Dude,
I'm sure
and it
that's
was
like 20
great, dude.
20 years of pent up. Like I want to do this. Like I'm pretty sure that was like had a like.
Well, see, he didn't. From what I understand, Hogan, he was very unsure about it because even though he was getting booed, he was like, "Hey, man, the kids and everything. I don't want to do that and like turn my back on him. This could backfire at us, brother. And Bischoff, and this was Eric Bischoff's call because originally they wanted to have Sting be the third member.
Yeah.
I remember I read that.
And I'm so glad that didn't happen. Like they took the ball and ran with it with Hogan, and shit blew up, dude.
Dude,
Because
and another good thing about the NWO was like, spray paint sales.
oh my God, right? I remember doing that at school at RF
Writing.
when I was in high school at the time.
There's a bathroom stall at my high school that was just like, yeah, everybody was just.
Oh yeah, I spray painted the letters NWO right in the middle of the school in the grass. Like,
Yeah,
where did
graffiti
that come
culture
from?
came back.
I'm pretty sure in this area, if you're still using textbooks from the late '90s, like you should just open it up and
Peachy folders.
There's an NWO logo.
NWO tag.
Oh, dude, NWO, and that's the other thing. I'd like to get into that. When you think back to WCW and merchandise, even merchandising back in the day, WWF was always good at it.
They were pretty good. Yeah.
They were pretty stellar. But when the NWO, and that's what Nash and Hall brought over, and even Hogan to some point, because they all came from fucking Titan Tower, They knew how to run this shit and the market and sell toys and bath soap or wherever the fuck had their name on it, you know? When that NWO t-shirt came out,
Oh, forget
that shit was
that probably
white
is
fucking hot.
That's I didn't do the research. I didn't look it up, but I'm willing to bet that that's probably the most selling wrestling shirt of all time.
And to now, in the nowadays where you got the modern day version with the Bullet Club, and that's kind of playing out very organically. And we've touched on them.
All those guys are pretty annoying, by the way. Like, I don't know, that whole like
Harry for hire, thanks for your comments. Don't shut the fuck up.
Bullet Club.
like no,
Bullet Club is for life as well.
It's cool, man. But the thing is, it's like now it's like there's so many people. Are they even still like who in that?
Oh yeah,
in that club?
No, there's still the core members. You know, like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes, and
I like what Cody's done with this. Like
Cody's
on the
awesome,
Andy, like how he's
and that
like,
he reminds me so
He's
much.
had a revitalization.
Yeah,
since
and
he
his
left.
dad, dude, Dusty, was a member of the NWO. It's cool to see, and he's fighting actually at the Sears Center in Chicago, September 1st
I heard about
for
that.
All In.
I heard
He's
that's
challenging
awesome.
for the NWA World Title. That is fucking cool, dude. His fucking dad won that.
Yeah.
Well,
You
I
know,
guess
like
going to the Bullet Club, it's like I remember when it started. Like you would hear whispers around them in the U.S. like a couple years back.
Right.
And I started like reading into it, and I was just
because in Japan they were
Right.
just like NWO, and in Japan they encourage the Americans to cuss and shit because it's like you're not going to see that anywhere else, you know.
But it seems like with Finn, you know,
Yeah.
AJ, once they like left,
Prince
it's just
Devitt.
like what Finn, I guess like he's the one that had like a grand picture of where he wanted this thing to go.
It was to change the business, you know, and they have.
I
And
feel like it's sort of like drifted away from that though, from what they were originally like, what they were trying to do. No, yeah,
maybe a little. I think they're doing good. When you sell out into a 10,000 seat arena in at less than a half hour, you're doing something fucking right, you know. But let's get back to the NWO. No more vaping for you, buddy. Yeah, but we'll go. You know, going back to the T-shirts and the merch for that. That NWO shirt was everywhere, and I'm pissed because I remember we went down to Florida. Remember Ed for band? We saw Coco Beware down there.
We did in the hotel.
Go beware.
Yeah, he was in our hotel.
Is he
I
alive?
loved him
He's
when I
still
was a
alive,
kid.
right?
Yeah, he's still alive, but Frankie
Go
the Bird
beware.
ain't.
Arn Anderson was there.
Yeah, Arn
in the
Anderson
park.
was down in Florida.
Is he a big dude?
Who Arn?
fat
Yeah,
dude.
like
I didn't meet him. Coco
Oh,
Beware's
he's
still
fat
jacked.
now.
I mean,
Was he?
he's
Yeah, he
he's a
wasn't.
thick dude, but he's still like
Yeah.
the dude's still strong. Like
Yeah.
regardless.
Did he have his like? Did he have anything neon on?
No, man, he was like in like some Zubaz or something.
He did have the bleached blonde hair though.
Yeah.
No, he was one half of the greatest tag team ever with Owen Hart.
No, God, that was
with
bad.
Owen Hart, yes.
What was the name of the What was the name of that tag team?
I forget. It was something ridiculous.
Yeah.
They both wore
don't
neon
know.
green pants and like
Yeah.
it was like
The
checkerboard.
checkered,
Yeah,
the
the
checkerboard
checkered, that's right.
suspenders, like totally.
Amazing.
That's right.
Oh man, that's
Dude.
worse than American males. American males.
So I'll tell you what I think when that happened when Hogan did the turn,
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually I don't think it's I know that was the revitalization of his career. Bottom
for
line, like,
sure, dude.
It took him from
you have to
literally
adapt to, you know.
It
stay
took him
relevant.
from being one of the best of all time to arguably the greatest of all time. Like
Right.
it took him to the Babe Ruth of wrestling. You know.
Yeah.
He was such a draw that he had Malone and Rodman.
Oh,
Man,
dude,
like,
D-Rod.
Yeah.
Going back to that, like the celebrities
the
that the
greatest.
NWO brought
like,
in.
that's unheard of. Like these two were like the biggest stars in the NBA.
And during the finals, they were
during the
fighting
finals,
for a
they gave him, like,
championship.
or whatever. They gave him the okay. Like think about that now. That's like saying, "Hey, Steph, we want you in a WWE segment during the like." That's unheard of. Like,
Yeah.
that's how big. These
Dude,
guys are, like.
it's funny you bring that up because I heard Billy
Carl
Corgan.
Malone's punk ass.
Yeah.
He
Fuck the
is.
mailman.
Boo!
Who's a-
Do you remember, like, they were doing that in the wrestling, and then in the finals, I swear it was like they were crossing over because
they were
Rodman, he was
right
like trying
at
to
it.
fight
Hated
him
each
on the court and shit, dude.
And remember because Marv Albert was like, it's one of these scripted wrestling things.
remember fuck Marv Albert. Here's a quick little NWO Dennis Rodman story for you. I heard Billy Corgan on, I think it was Joe Rogan's podcast, and he's talking about back in the day. Billy Corgan, owner of the NWA, now was a huge wrestling fan. Would always go to a lot of ECW and WCW events back in the day. Well, when the NWO was doing the shit with Rodman, they were getting ready to do like Hog Wild or some pay-per-view at the time. Billy was hanging out with Dennis, and Billy's like, I got a lot of trouble from the executives and people at Turner Network back in the day because I was hanging out with Dennis. We would do a TV taping or whatever they had to do for the wrestling, and then he's like, he'd take a plane, we'd go to Vegas, and we'd be up. He didn't go to sleep. He's drinking and gambling and partying with ladies all night.
And then you go.
And then we go back in the morning. He would for shoot-arounds and practice. And then he'd get done, he'd play the game, and then he's like, all right, we're going back to Vegas. He's like, I can't do that, you know? And this is Billy Corgan, the rock star, saying this to the NBA guy, you know, like.
Legendary.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to do that, you know? Like, you go. And Robin went by himself, I think, and ended up going and partying. And they were giving Billy Corgan shit, though, because they thought he was the guy tempting them with all this. It's like, hey, none of this shit's my idea.
I know, it was all Rodzilla, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Rodzilla being the
Rodzilla, brother. Rodzilla, brother. Remember you come off the ramp with the NWO with the top hat and shit on? Like,
And the cigar.
Yeah, just smoking.
Always
He
had a
would
big
talk some
stogie.
shit, dude.
I wonder, like, you know how you guys were talking about, like, the NWO has, like, a lot of, like, how it grew, like, ridiculously. I just try to, like, for shits and giggles, try to picture in my mind, like, Buff Bagwell having to, like, bring everybody coffee to, like,
Dude, I like Buff. Don't diss Buff.
Yeah,
I like Buff.
that's Joe's wrestling man crush.
Him and Disco Inferno. I like when Disco Inferno became a part of the NWO. I was like, all right,
You know what?
I could get on board now.
Yeah, it was a disco fever.
Yeah.
It's like an easy comparison, but it's like because the Simpsons had Disco Stew. Like I'm like,
Yeah, Disco
Inferno
Stew.
is WCW's Disco Stew.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So real quick, let's go.
Just
You know, we went a
don't
little bit over the
advertise.
merch and early beginnings of the original members. I want to get into a list of the members because I will sum it up for you real quick. The long and short of the NWO was it started off as a great, impactful group, and I think honestly, if they could have stayed with 3, maybe 4 members, because I loved when they brought in Ted DiBiase because he was the money guy, and everybody knew he was the $1 Million Man. So it was like,
Don't forget Rude.
what? Oh, Rick Rude too.
man.
Yeah,
Rest
yeah.
in peace, dude. That was
Yeah,
my guy,
Rick Rude.
dude.
We love him here on JP Dub. We've done some stuff with Rick. We actually channeled his spirit and talked to him quite a few times.
Ouija.
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Was
Ouija,
Buff's
are you
mom,
with
Judy,
me?
Was she in the NWO?
Momenta.
My money, my money, my power. All right, here we go. I'm gonna break it down for you, motherfuckers, real quick.
Break it down.
Obviously, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hollywood Hogan, the first 3 original members of the NWO. The 4th member, Ted DiBiase, joined on August 26th of 1996. After Ted, we had the Giant, which I wasn't too
Wow,
happy when the Giant
yeah.
joined. I was
forgot.
like, man,
yeah.
They were
fuck the
like at
Giant.
that point, they were getting too stacked. It's like
They were starting to, and then
it's like,
and here,
this ain't fair. Like, come
NWO
on.
Sting was after the Giant, the
It's like-
bogus Sting.
And then
I
you're
hate
like,
the
are you
fake
The Joey Kane hates the fake Sting. He was so dumb, wasn't he?
Who was
Wait,
it?
who was the NWO referee?
was-
I don't know.
Didn't
He
they
was
have
just
a
some
fucking-
guy. I don't know his name.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I was a fake
They had
Sting.
their
Like,
own
no, you
dedicated
weren't.
ref.
Dude with
No, you weren't,
the
bro.
Srutton was the
mustache and
fake
curly
Sting
hair.
for Halloween once.
Back then, they were having. Okay, I remember I did this in high school. They were doing WCW Nitro parties, like where
Yeah.
they would film it,
Yeah.
and send it in, and
Yep.
and then like the winner.
They would come to your house, and me and Gene would be partying with you. Oh my God!
Dude, I bet. Did he party? Me and Gene party?
Oh, he's a horrible alcoholic. Hey, shout out to me and Gene and 3 Floyds. We're drinking
Floyds.
some zombie dust like we always do.
And some Zima.
Sorry, yeah, and some Zima.
And Zima.
We went in the time machine.
This
We're gonna go
podcast-
back in time.
Joe, this podcast is brought to you by the early 90s.
Jolly Rancher.
All right, back on point. NWO Sting. This was the coolest one. Even though I don't really like this guy, I did like him when he went to NWO. Was 6. 6 was number 6.
Oh, for sure, yeah,
Remember they had the
100%.
6-ball shirt?
I know, that was my favorite shirt.
6-pack.
dude. Yeah. Just had a big 6-ball.
And then
Six-pack.
probably the most infamous what would you call him? The B team superstar for the NWO. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Vincent, a.k.a. Lonely Virgil.
Virgil. Virgil.
Big-
I did
arms
like,
in the
and you know
game.
why they called him Vincent, right?
Why?
You know,
Take a guess.
Oh, McMahon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, he was legit. I think he was a boxer, too. Back to the next member. Shocking. Here's another RIP for you, Miss Elizabeth. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, oh,
Where's Elizabeth?
She was a member for Macho Man.
Yeah, well, she was with the Horsemen, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And then she turned on Flair and them and joined the NWO. And then
She's always
next
jumping.
was the big reveal. And this is, mind you, this is before the Vince McMahon, the evil Mr. McMahon. Eric Bischoff was the next guy who was revealed
What's
as...
his story? What's his
he
story?
does-
He
like?
ran
Terry.
WCW
Okay.
at the time. He
So
was
he's
in
like
charge.
Ted Turner's dude.
Yeah, but he on air he was a commentary guy,
Right, I remember him,
personality,
yeah, but-
and then he became Easy E.
Eazy-E, I remember.
We work for Sleazy E. Yeah, he became like, and he's like, now that everybody knows who's working for who,
He was
brother.
annoying.
Yeah.
You know, remember that shit?
He matched like he was like greasy looking.
Yeah, a little Weasley guy, and
yeah.
and everybody knew he ran WCW. And like I said, this is before Mr. McMahon. So who took from who? For all you haters out there,
Dude, Bischoff had that little Weasley.
Yeah, he had that weasel.
Yeah.
Look. I
Yeah.
didn't like him.
Yeah.
Still don't like that dude.
Just 'cause
So,
he looks like a
and-
weasel.
Here we go, Joey Kane. This one's for you. The next male. The next male. Well, that kind of goes good with it because the next American male to join was Buff Bagwell.
Buff
Marcus
Bagwell.
Alexander Bagwell, who is the brother of, I think, Jeff Bagwell, baseball player.
Was he?
Yeah, that's his brother.
Really?
Yep.
Well, is it really? I didn't know that.
No
yes,
way.
it is. It is totally true. They are siblings.
I remember
Google
saying
it.
is-
Jeff Bagwell's a bad dude.
Yeah.
Marcus Bagwell ain't shit if it wasn't for the Patriot. Get out.
Patriot.
The Patriot, the wrestler, the
Did you
Patriot.
just stump the
He wasn't
Jews?
the Patriot.
He just stumped
No,
the
they were a
Jews.
tag
threatened.
team though.
Look at
Was it
the
no?
Jews is
Because
stumped.
with
They were a
who?
tag
The
team
Jews
with
is stumped.
Bagwell.
What was it called? It wasn't
They
the
were
American
shitty
because
tag
Scotty
I feel like
Riggs.
we're playing like
If you
a
look it up,
stump the
they-
I
juice.
think I know. I kind of remember.
No, this is like the
Juice
time
got
when
stumped in his
WCW
pants.
would just like throw people together and be like, "You're a tag team," and they would
Front and
pair
back.
someone like Buff
Small
Bagwell and the
vanilla Tootsie
Patriot together. Like,
Yeah.
just put them together.
Well, he was good. You know, I did kind of enjoy Buff.
Buff was cool. He was just like he was an asshole. He never really fought. Like
Here we go.
wanted to
Here's
punch
where
him
we
in the
start
face.
getting
Yeah,
on.
he was
You
arrogant.
couldn't because he'd probably.
Here's where we start
Yeah.
getting into the list of just bullshit names kind of after that. Michael Wall Street, who most
Irwin
yeah, R. Shyster. Yeah, IRS. Remember?
Oh yeah, damn.
It was him. Then Big Bubba Rogers, another RIP.
Oh yes, big boss man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
If you ever take a trip down to Cobb County, Georgia,
yeah.
But you know,
you be looking for some hard time.
that dude can.
Yeah, he was a good big man. R.I.P. Next, this guy I always liked though, Scott Norton.
I love.
Remember
Scott
the Iron
Norton.
Gut, dude? He was like
Yeah.
a legit strongman, like arm wrestling guy.
Was he the biker gimmick guy?
Yeah,
Kinda, yeah.
had the
They were
chaps
all
on?
somewhat like
he
fucking
looked like
bikers.
an outlaw. You know.
Yeah.
The guy had beat
Huge
the shit out of me
mullet.
at the bar.
Yeah, Scott Norton, he was cool.
Mullet? No mullet.
After Norton, Masahiro Chono. You guys remember Masahiro Chono?
I don't.
From New Japan Pro Wrestling. He had the mullet, big, tall Japanese dude, kind of wore the shades.
Was he in like?
He was the NWO Japan too. They had like a Japanese branch.
I don't remember him.
All right, we'll move on to the next because you guys all know who the next one is. Randy Macho Man Savage. Dig it.
Speaking of which, don't we have him in the studio?
I don't think he's anywhere to be found today.
You're like this one. He's like the original KD.
yeah. Macho Man is the equivalent of Kevin Durant, dude. He jumped ship to the winning team, dude.
Yeah,
He did.
Like, are you gonna be the? Like,
He did.
You know it's that old age. If you
they
can't beat him,
embarrass
join
him
him.
on national TV. Like forever, he's gonna. Be
Where's
one of those guys-
Elizabeth?
Yeah, he
He's gonna
came
be
there because
known as the guy that,
Elizabeth's
like,
tramp
Hogan
ass.
dropped
went-
Yeah, you got to follow that set, you know.
And then he joined
that
us.
And then he
Sliz.
joins them. It's like, dude, what the fuck, man?
Dennis Rodman, the Worm, big Worm up in this motherfucker with as the next member, followed by one of my personal favorites. And I think if you were to tell, we were talking earlier about great Asian wrestlers. I think my favorite would probably have to be the Great Muta. I really love the Great Muta. He was badass, and still to this day.
It's so
Great
they just
Tentaka.
picked everybody that they
Yeah.
wanted. They're like,
Then you
"You're
had
really good.
Tenzan, who I don't really remember. Oh, he was an NWO Japan guy. Then Conan, K-Dog. Then
I love
here's a good
K-Dog.
one. I love Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect.
He's
Yeah.
my favorite of all time.
He should have been an early on member. I mean, he fit that because to me, the NWO was like, okay, we're all ex-WWE big top
But they had
names.
him doing some cowboy gimmick at the time. And
The West,
shit, didn't
the
they?
West Texas Rednecks, yeah.
and singing. And I'm like,
I
he's
hate
like one of
rap.
the best wrestlers in the world. And they're
Yeah.
like having fucking.
He easily could have been top 5.
Bad booking. And then after him was his brother in arms from Minnesota, Ravishing Rick Rude.
Oh man.
Followed by this, who I don't remember him joining, Louis Spicoli. Remember Louis Spicoli from
Spicoli
ECW? I think he
driver.
was from around here.
Really?
He was as a valet for Scott Hall, and then he died. Hey, yo.
Wait, kayfabe died or
Hey,
like?
yo.
No, he's dead.
He dead. He gone.
He gone.
Well, at least he could
Shout out to
say,
Hawk Harrelson.
Wait, he was NWO.
Apparently.
He was a manager for Scott Hall. And then after Louis Spicoli, we had the America Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Dude, he had such a weird voice.
Then the son of a plumber.
Wait, didn't Cody Rhodes like
you
talk
do that-
about
you
like
do that
how
good,
he
Wallace.
took a lot of shit in high school? I remember. reading
I'm
something
sure.
about that, Like,
God, his voice was awful. Yeah, he had a bad
I liked
voice.
it though. It was good. Fuck
was
you
so
guys.
bad, it was good.
And then next we had Brian Adams, aka Crush. Remember from the Demolition? The Kona Crush brother.
that's Brutus, right?
I don't think he was
Brutus
confused on what he was as well as I was confused on
I thought
what he
Brutus
was.
Beefcake became Crush.
No, he became like the Zodiac and the Booty Man. Remember, he was the Booty Man. He became the
disciple. In WWE, he was the Crush, right? He was.
No, Brutus wasn't.
No,
Brian Adams.
Brian Adams was Crush.
Okay.
Yeah,
but it's funny you did say that because after that was the Disciple, which was Brutus Beefcake.
I thought, which one's Adam Bomb?
Adam Bomb was not Mortis, but he was in Wrath, I think, in WCW.
Yes, he was.
When they had the Mortal Kombat
they
characters.
They all look alike, and they all like shared a gimmick or something.
And then probably one of the biggest shockers in a long time, that joined in February of '98. Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner, man!
He was my favorite, dude. He was the best. He was the
What do you guys think? You got some Scott Steiner memories or what?
I think we should take a visit to his Hardee's.
Yeah, he does have a Hardee's.
He does. And just like order like his food using his equation.
What'd you order? I'd like 53 and 1 half. No preservatives. I don't want to get fat.
Like, you expect him, like, you go there him to be in character. Watch, he's like super fucking professional when you go there. And he's like,
oh yeah, he was on the news a year or two ago for that because that Hardee's, there was like a shooting or something there, and then it's like Scott Steiner, and I'm like, what the?
That's right. And then in Florida, Georgia, it was in Georgia or something.
Yep. Like, can you imagine walking to a Hardee's and him being like, "Hi, welcome to Hardee's. How may I help you?" Like all chill like that.
So after Scotty Steiner, who we all know and love, and I've assisted him in a match beating up a referee, true story. Me and Scott Steiner are bros. Nick Patrick, remember the NWO referee?
Oh yeah, that's his name. We were talking about that earlier. The NWO referee,
the corrupt referee.
He's the one that had the goatee, right? The goatee and the like the curly mullet.
Curly, he looked like a weird Kenny Powers.
Greasy curly. They had their own ref, man.
So then we had Bret Hart, who was like an associate. That's really all I'm getting. Stevie Ray.
Yeah.
Dude, you forgot.
God, why?
You forgot Disco Inferno.
It's coming. Oh. Horace Hogan.
Dude, Horace Hogan was massive. He was a massive dude.
Barry Windham.
Oh, I love Barry Windham.
Barry Windham was cool, but like NWO, this is what I'm getting to. NWO was so awesome, and they did so much cool shit. And you guys can go online or go on the WWE Network and check out all this stuff we're talking about, or anything we may have not touched base on. But the whole downfall of this group was, it was like, dude, they just threw too many fucking people in. They had their own pay-per-view, the sold out, which was cool. You know, I mean, if you go back and watch, they had a cool vibe in the beginning. Open, it was like the black and white screens, and they're all on these semis that had NWO, and they're riding like in Harleys and shit, and like it's just very raw, very cool visuals, you know. But then when they got into like the actual matches and stuff, they had like Eddie Guerrero wrestled. I'll never forget, they had him come out. And they'd have his music, but, you know, remember the NWO voice?
Yeah.
They'd have the Mexican jumping bean, Eddie Guerrero. Like when he came out, like just making fun of the WCW guys. Like when Hogan used to come out, he'd be like, the greatest icon in professional wrestling. But, you know, the downfall was all these guys joining, and then they splinter into two groups. You know, the NWO Wolfpack, which broke off from Black and White, and started gang warfare pretty much.
It was gang warfare.
It was. You had Kevin Nash leading the Wolfpack along with Conan, Sting, Luger, and the Macho Man against NWO Hollywood, which was basically anybody left in the fucking NWO at the time, which was still a shit ton of guys, you know. So they started doing that, and I don't know. Did you guys have any NWO shirts in school?
Oh yeah, I had the original, the OG one.
I had both the OG red and red.
You know what? I could never get into Wolfpack, man. I could never get into Wolfpack.
When I had the red one with the black.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool.
I was never a big Wolfpack fan, but I did like the red and black, though. I remember I had the black with the red logo and some red Dickies, dude.
Scott Hall's outfit was awesome with the blood.
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
It looked good, man.
Yeah.
Dude, and you know what was awesome, too, back in the day is, like, being a Bulls fan, you got the Jordans and stuff like that. And what was it, like,
it would match your outfit.
96, 97, dude, they had the black and red Jordans and then the black and white. Dude, it was like the Wolfpack and the NWO Jordan 12s, dude.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That was the one with, like, the arch.
It was
right?
It was perfect. That you know, and you got to think about it as a kid and everything like that. You know, wrestling, and then all of a sudden, you know, what are two of the biggest things at that point in time?
The Bulls and NWO.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the greatest
Black
in
and
the
red,
Midwest,
baby.
dude. If you weren't in the '90s, in the mid '90s, late '90s in the Midwest, like Chicago, Northwest Indiana, You know what the fuck California, all that shit.
I know.
don't care.
I
You know what was going on. We were winning rings and buying things. You know. That's
I win it rings, buy things.
Yeah.
I spent more money on spilled alcohol.
Yeah, remember?
Space Mountain, baby.
Flair was always fighting against the NWO.
Yeah,
He was, dude.
I remember
Flair was
us.
always getting jumped, dude.
They'd beat
Yeah.
the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Flair all
Oh,
the
there
time.
it is. There's the infamous leg drop. I remember them.
God damn, Flair took some.
I remember Flair, them coming out in black Hummers, and they all had burglar masks on, and they were kicking the shit out of Ric Flair. It's like in the desert or something. Like,
Yeah.
You guys ever notice when Hogan spits on things, he over exaggerates by like cocking his head back like 10 feet? Like,
oh yeah, that's because he's jacked, brother.
Yeah.
that dude is.
But yeah, Flair was always getting jumped.
Yeah, Flair was always getting, and then they spray painted. Remember the stripe on his back like a skunk? He was
You know
wearing
what?
those green tights.
I'll tell you what, dude. The NWO thing was amazing for me when Shane bought WCW, and then that whole invasion angle.
Well,
and
we'll get to the invasion real quick here. We'll kind of finish up with the WCW era. So NWO got too big for its britches. Then they were feuding between each other. Then there was, believe it or not,
Egos.
an LWO, Latin World Order, Latino World Order.
Weren't you in the LWO?
I think I was.
El Juice?
El Jugo de Cristo for life. So it got weak, and then they kind of killed it off for a little because it was hurting more than it was helping. And at the time, you had WWF was breaking in with Stone Cold and The Rock, and those guys were starting to get huge, and they were bringing in Tyson and all this kind of more edgy, cutting edge stuff. They did bring back another version of the NWO. Which was the NWO Elite. This all goes back to the infamous moment where a lot of people say it was the end of WCW as far as their booking and just existence, the finger poke of doom.
Yes.
It was supposed to be Hogan was retiring, kayfabe retiring, whatever, and then it turned into a match with Kevin Nash for the world title. And Kevin Nash was still the leader of the Wolfpack. You had Hollywood, who was NWO Hollywood, and the whole thing was like Hogan was going to retire if he didn't win the belt and blah, 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 all this shit. They get up there, bell rings, Hogan goes to punch and just pokes him with his finger, and Nash falls down. They swerve
That
everybody.
sucked, yeah.
It pissed a lot of people off.
sucked.
And
Yeah.
I remember that.
I thought it was cool that they ended up getting back together, but the way they did it was pretty shitty.
Yeah.
That you're insulting your fans' intelligence at that time.
Big time. Big time.
So that group consisted of Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Lex Luger, Hollywood Hogan, Scott Steiner.
Wasn't Conan? No.
I don't think no. I think they kicked.
Jeff Jarrett.
No, Jeff Jarrett was a part of the after the NWO Elite. That kind of fizzled again, and Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara came in. Then they tried to bring it back again with the silver and black NWO. The NWO 2000. It was Jeff Jarrett, Hall,
2000?
Nash, Steiner. Hashtag the band's getting back together, or the band's back together.
It seems like he's been a part of like every stable in existence for the last 10 years, man.
Jeff Jarrett? Yeah. God bless his soul. So then after that, like you were saying, Ed, going into, after, the NWO 2000 thing kind of fizzled out, and we all know what happened when WCW getting bought out in 2001. And then because a lot of those guys were still under contract with Time Warner, Vince McMahon didn't want to buy them out. Because they were guaranteed contracts. We're talking millions of dollars for
Yep.
Hogan. That's why when the invasion happened, you got a shit storyline. Because guys wanted to see Goldberg come in and fight Stone Cold or Hogan and Stone Cold. But these dudes had contracts that they were just going to ride out. I mean, what would you do? Would you go? Would you sit at home or go do shit with your family and get paid millions of dollars, or go to work? I mean, it's a no-brainer.
I know what Sean Stasiak did.
Meat.
He picked that
Remember Meat?
contract. He's like, oh.
Yeah, he went there. He had to. He had no choice.
He's like,
and now he's a
I'm
real
working.
estate guy.
Doesn't Just Incredible own a fucking...
PJ Polacco.
I thought it was an
I
Olive
think he
Garden.
owns a bad drug habit right now. But I think he's getting over it. So
PJ
kudos to you.
Polacco.
Yeah.
But the invasion angle, they really messed up.
Didn't
big
work,
time.
and so
I don't even know.
it ends up being, what is this, 2002 or 3? I think it was 2002, where Ric Flair,
Yep.
kayfabe, buys half of the company out from Shane and after the invasion shit. And McMahon's pissed. He's like, "You ruined my company." And he's like,
No one's gonna kill it.
I'm going to kill what I created. I'm going to inject it with a lethal dose of poison. I'm going to inject it with a lethal dose of the NWO.
And the next week they come
Wasn't
out there
Shawn
and they're
Michaels
like,
in that
"Oh,
Shawn Michaels
Yeah.
did end up being in
click."
one. Yeah, but they brought back the original 3 guys. Now, mind you, this was the first time Hulk Hogan, who was probably the most important part of any of those guys returning, because we're talking about the house Hogan built, coming back after being gone for what, like 8 or 10 years, something like that.
Yep.
And it was a huge, even though he was coming back as a heel, he got in the ring and, dude, everybody's cheering for Hogan, you know, because they want the red and yellow. They don't care if it's Hollywood, red and yellow, whatever. Long story short, it leads up to a WrestleMania match with The Rock. Epic fucking match. I thought both those guys, and especially for Hogan being in the condition and age he was, it was good. It was a solid match.
But the crazy thing is Rock was so big back then.
The fans turned on him.
The fans turned on him over, like they wanted
nostalgia,
Hogan.
dude.
Yep.
And they were in Canada. In Canada, huge
Rock
wrestling
sucks. I
fans.
never liked him.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I don't
If
like
you
the,
smell, la 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 la.
I don't like The Rock, so like I was digging that.
But dude, it was all well. Here's the thing, dude. Is I was a huge
Girl
Hogan
at the
fan.
Rock show.
Even over those two, dude. I was a huge Hogan fan, and like,
Oh, yeah.
it was awesome.
Full
And
of
and how you were talking about earlier, how he was like the ultimate heel. Dude, it was
Yeah.
great, dude. You remember like Rock's on the ground and he scratches his back with
Yeah,
the nails,
yeah.
and then he pulls out the belt and starts whipping him.
Yappa pie, strap match, brother.
I don't remember this, but wasn't Stone Cold versus Hall on that?
Scott Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't that match get a lot
Scott
of shit?
Hall took the
Yeah.
best bump for a stunner, though.
Oh
man.
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I remember that.
He was
I
a
enjoyed
drunk,
that
though.
match. I enjoyed
Such
that
a
match,
drunk.
but
I
it
love
got a
Scott
lot of
Hall,
shit though.
Hey.
Dude, he's one of my favorites too.
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo. Dude, it was awesome, though. He took great bumps whenever he took a stunner. But
He took bumps in the bar, too, real great.
Significant amount of bumps in the bar. Key
dude,
bumps.
he gets the crowd
So-
quiet. He doesn't even know how to say hey, yo
Yeah, key
anymore. He
bumps.
forgets it.
So the story of the NWO in WWE is it wasn't going to work. I mean, it did for a hot second, but it wasn't going to work because everybody knew that once Hogan came back at some point,
Red and
he was
yellow.
Yep, and it happened.
Red and
he
yellow.
did right after that, you know. So Hall and Nash come out and they kind of beat them both down because he like shook the Rock's hand afterwards, like good sportsmanship. And they're like, "Fuck it, we're NWO, we're
gonna beat you
scoundrels."
down.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about the
Bringing the
NWO.
'90s into the 2000s, you know.
Yeah.
Jumping people.
Yeah, dude, just always, all the
Gang
time.
warfare
Yeah.
all the time. I love that part. of
Yeah,
it
it was great.
It was the best.
And someone
After Hogan.
After Hogan went good, and then I think Hall, they fired his ass because he was a drunk. Yeah, and like you said, Harry for Hire. Who'd we have in there? Shawn Michaels came out. Big Show, Booker T.
Yeah.
Just at that point, that's when the NWO was dead.
It-
you know,
for sure.
And it just fizzled out, and it was done.
Could you
after
see
that.
it if they ever did bring it back? Let's say WWE wanted to.
There's
kick
been
around
plenty of
kick around the
opportunities.
idea. Like let's say right now, and they wanted to kick her idea. Could you see it happening in today's landscape though? If they wanted to bring it back in today,
Yes
if they
and
did
no.
it right, and who would you want to put in there?
I don't know. I love the idea of Hogan going and being like the Godfather for the Bullet Club. I just saw a picture on Twitter of
Really?
Matt and Nick Jackson
That's pretty
hanging out
cool.
with them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that would be because dude, the Bullet Club is DX and NWO mixed together.
Yeah.
You know, it's those guys who grew up watching that shit and now
Yep.
they're making it their own, dude. So kudos to them, you know. I think something like that and to involve Hogan, like I said, it's like a Godfather OG, and he's like, if you brothers ever need help, you know where Hollywood's at. Twitter. I was
dude.
like, dude, it's fucking for
Dude,
life.
and that's the best
It's a
part,
way of
dude.
life for life.
Hollywood, like it was always the Immortal Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Dude, it was great, blah, blah, blah. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, when Hollywood got attached
Dude,
to it, dude,
man,
it was
he
the
was-
greatest
he was
thing.
Pimcore all the way.
Hollywood, dude, for sure.
Can I get it too sweet? Too sweet. Turkish
Dude,
Wolf, throw it up.
Dude, it was
Yeah.
great.
What's the origin of the
So
Turkish
Hogan
Wolf?
was like,
The origins of the NWO, which is a big thing now because now the Bullet Club uses that, which, spanning the influence of this group. Again, here we are 20 years later, and we're talking about the fucking NWO. The hand gesture,
Yeah.
which looks like a wolf. It's the "Too Sweet Me" sign.
The too sweet.
It's a Turkish wolf. And what it was is they were on some kind of European tour or something back in the day. This is when it was like the Click. So you had Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Triple H, Scott Hall, and X-Pac. We're all tight boys in the back, And Sean Waltman came back and I think either he was out there or he saw something about like some Turkish mafia thing or whatever, and it was like throwing up the Turkish wolf, and so they just do it like.
Yeah.
It became that. At first, it was the Click thing, and then when Hall and Nash went to, WCW and became the NWO, that was what it was. It was
For the
throwing it up.
Wolfpack.
Yeah, and dude, it was so fucking cool. I remember going to high school and shit like that. I'd get kicked out of classes because I'm
doing
Sure
it.
you
talking
did.
about NWO. If you want
Wallace,
to
get
talk
outside
about
of
the
the room.
NWO, you can do it in the hallway.
Mr. Wells.
Yeah, Mr. Wells. I'd
leave
come
the
in and see a bunch of notes on his board, and I'd be like, immediately, I didn't see him, so I'd be like, fuck these notes. I'm fucking writing this shit down. Fuck that.
Is that Scott Steiner or was that you in high school?
I was Scott Steiner in high school. Fuck this shit. And then I got kicked out in the hallway. So
Damn.
But going back to the NWO's influence on everything, like I said, we wouldn't have the Bullet Club today. You wouldn't have DX if there wasn't
You wouldn't
an
have
NWO.
DX. I don't think that
DX
wrestling
sucks.
would be. I don't think wrestling would be in the pop culture that it is right now. I mean, look at it. Look at it when sports teams win like a championship. Do you remember when Cleveland won the championship?
Yeah.
Kevin Love comes out of the plane and he's got the belt.
Yep.
You know, he's got the belt.
Do you remember
And, like,
they
even-
had actual NWO jerseys for Cleveland? They had the black and white ones.
No, that was
the Heat?
Miami.
Was that
oh,
the Heat?
dude, they were
was the
awesome
Heat.
though.
Yeah,
dude.
that was.
that was
They were the
Black
NWO jerseys,
and white, dude. Yep.
Everybody was pissed that those guys went there and they were the new NWO.
I was pissed.
They were.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
that's-
pissed.
yeah.
That was an
Legit
NWO.
Heat, man.
Yep.
Total NWO.
Another thing I'd like to talk about, because and especially having Joe here, musically meditated podcast, which you can check on the Green Door Network and iTunes and YouTube and any podcasting platform.
Any platform.
You can tweet at Music Med Podcast, and he's on Instagram at Musically Meditated
And Facebook.
and Facebook. Hit
And
it all
everything.
And if you just see
Everything,
him, you can give
you
him
know.
a reach around.
Yeah.
up. The Grim Reaper reach around.
Grim Reaper.
But I'd like to talk because we've all, I'm sure, in some way been impacted by some wrestler's theme song. Whether you're a little kid or high school or now, the NWO theme song
Oh yeah. For sure.
was probably it's got to be one in my
The greatest.
yeah.
It's the
one of my
greatest.
top 10, top 5, top 3 theme songs because it's so cool. And all it is like chopped up Jimi Hendrix shit. And it's
is.
called Rock House.
Yep.
Who did it? Do you know who? I mean, was it? Did they just have a regular person in the studio doing this, or was Hogan behind it? Because I know Hogan plays bass, right?
Hogan does play bass,
Yeah.
but he had nothing to do with.
Dude, I'd start a band with Hogan.
Oh, I know, absolutely. You'd sell out.
Oh, dude, yeah.
He wasn't
Hulk
a bad
Hogan's
bass
wrestling
player.
boot band.
Remember those old videos with him playing bass?
The American flag.
Yeah, yeah. What was he using? That was like a crazy old like Ibanez bass or something, like a Warlock, a BC Rich.
Oh, yeah, he had those brown tint 80s glasses.
Here it is. It's called Rock House. It was by someone named Frank Shelley, used by NWO Black and White Hollywood. Blah blah blah.
But it was like a chopped up Hendrix song.
Yeah. Oh, here's the remember the B card theme song? Here, let me see if I could dial that up. The NWO, it's like it's whenever the Buff Bagwell or any of the B list guys would come out, they come out to the NWO beat.
They played a shittier version. Like
Yeah.
they weren't they weren't worthy of the real NWO entrance.
No.
They just hit the C button on an old Casio keyboard, dude.
This is the anti-Buff Bagwell episode, man. Everybody's hating
No,
on
no,
Buff.
I'm not hating on Buff, but
Dude, he's
kind
getting
of
offended.
offended.
I'm hating on Buff, dude.
He had he had a lot of charisma, man. Leave him alone. He just jumped in on a jump.
Do you remember? Wait, didn't they put his mom on a pole
here you go. Here it goes.
in a match?
She's been on a pole in many a matches. Oh, never mind.
What kind of match are you talking?
Here we go.
Wait, what is?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Remember this shit? Dun, 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 dun.
That's like a ringtone, dude.
That's like a shitty ringtone.
Yeah.
Like that's like a ringtone that's the stock bullshit when you get a new phone.
It's like the kind of music like on a NASCAR video game in the background.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what it sounds like.
Ace Combat or some shit. Need for Speed Cruising.
So you had that, and then you also had for the Red and Black, you had the NWO Wolfpack theme song. And do you guys remember that? See Murder?
See Murda.
Do you guys remember?
The Wolfpack theme song.
Oh, it's all gangster.
Wet 'em up. Wet 'em
Set 'em
up.
up. Oh, yeah.
Back is back.
Yeah, you remember, dude?
See the bad boys of wrestling. Just a competition.
Not no mercy.
It was totally gangster. This is great.
Don't know you better.
Dude, that was
Conan, remember he'd come out looking all
Yeah.
loco?
Yeah,
Boss
dude. He
Loco?
was great on the mic, and he still is to this day.
Yeah, he would rap.
he was Vatos Loco.
Vatos Locos,
Yeah.
thank you, Eddie.
Hey,
But he'd have like the flannel on.
hey.
Bass line.
Hey, he'd have the flannel on where just the very top button. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd have the hat and the
Odele, viva la raza! So
I'll tell you
yeah,
what, the dude could
NWO
wrestle,
Red. It was even though I didn't like them, I liked
I
that
liked
song,
him, man.
dude.
You didn't like the red?
I didn't really like him as a group because I was NWO Hollywood. It's like the
Dude.
Sox and the Cubs. You
I know.
can't. You have to
I was
pick
always
one.
a Scott Hall guy. Like
My
Stratton.
world.
Stratton, you were Hall all the way,
Any
right?
world.
Yeah.
Good.
Stratton Scott Hall all the way.
Right.
All right. Is that your favorite NWO member?
Scott-
No, cause me.
Hey, yo.
Jolly.
Hey, yo. dude. And then of course Hollywood's entrance, dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's hear that.
yeah. Well, you guys, you all know this,
I know.
but
But
you
it's
know.
still great,
great.
dude. I like even in the beginning when they would patch in like the NWO like throughout the beginning of it, dude. It was awesome. When I got married, I came out to that.
Yeah, I remember I was there. I was there, dude. We were
That was
getting-
our entrance song. It's
Yeah.
hilarious, dude. Hey, the wife and I, we both had black and white boas and everything, dude. It was awesome.
Working class Americans get
Working class
Man.
Americans get the truth. Quit
You
smoking.
gotta skip those ads.
I know. Well,
Oh yeah,
this is what Dennis Rodman.
That he's gone in the ring.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, there
That's
it is.
the one.
Hogan coming out, dude. It's still to this
Hey,
day makes
keep
someone go
pumped.
fuck someone up, dude.
That's Hollywood.
And then like be cool about it though. that was the
Yeah.
NWO shtick. They would whip
Beat
your
the
ass,
shit out of
and they were
somebody.
so gang mentality, but they were so cool,
And then
dude.
beat your
Hey.
ass after with all their bullshit.
Yeah, so they beat the shit out of Macho Man. They were so cool about it that a few months later, Macho Man's like, "Hey, dude, can I be part of the NWO?"
Yeah. If you can't beat them, join them. Yeah.
He was just following old girl.
Yeah, he was. You know,
He was
you know,
whipped like that.
they were all beating on Elizabeth. He wanted a piece of that tuna pot pie.
What happened to her? She passed away?
Yeah, sadly, she passed. I think early 2000s. She
What
was
happened?
dating Lex Luger, and you know they were wrapped up in that drug game, and she was taking a bunch of pills or something. OD'd, and he found her.
Those pills kill, man, for sure.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot with these wrestlers, you know, because they
Yeah.
kind of hide it. And
So,
You can,
kind of going back to NWO, obviously we all had great times watching this stuff, and still to this day, it's cool to go back and look at some of this stuff and laugh, and you know how silly some of this shit really is, but at the same time, still real fucking cool. What would you guys would say would be your favorite NWO moment?
I would say the best NWO moment. I still think the best one was when Hogan turned, but I still think probably the best NWO moment in general. I liked it backstage when they would just like destroy stuff, kind of like what we were watching earlier, how they flipped the.
They lawn dart Rey Mysterio into the van.
Well, even
the
how they
backstage
flip, even how they flipped like the limo and everything like that, and people were like, "Is this shit
Yeah.
real? Like,
Yeah,
is it scripted anymore? Or is it like legit? You know?" So
it was too legit to quit.
it was. I like that. I always thought those were awesome.
I like all the times when they would bring Goldberg in. You know how they kind of put Goldberg on the I don't know, the hero aspect.
Yeah,
And
he
they
was
were always
supposed to
cool.
plow through all those dudes. you know?
Right. So I liked all those moments. Like I love the NWO, but I liked when they would try to gang up on Goldberg, and you know he would lay
Yeah.
everybody out like that time. And I like what they would do with Sting too, because like WCW was always Sting's, and
Yeah.
they would let him. You know what I mean?
He was kind of like the savior, the
crasher and the
vigilante guy.
savior.
You know?
So I like all those moments because when it got oversaturated with all the members, they kind of like stepped back and they would let the good guy win.
Yeah,
too, you
yeah.
know,
He
or
would
like
drop
the good
down from
guy
the ceiling or some
prevail.
shit, or be up in the rafters with that vulture, something like just looking real fucking evil, kind of tough looking. You know.
Well, at one point in time, what was it? 90% of them were all NWO. There's only 10%
Yeah.
WCW
Yeah.
wrestlers. That's
Yeah.
it.
But I do
Yeah.
like the original moment, like when Hogan came out and he jumped ship. You know, he was in the red and yellow, like we were watching earlier. Like that's the coolest with him, Nash, and Scott.
yeah,
Hall.
I'd say that's probably my favorite moment too.
favorite
You know,
moment.
other than maybe the crossover with Rodman, because I thought that was really cool.
That was cool too. That was perfect timing, like with the whole Bulls thing. And remember Malone? Who was Malone with? Carl Malone.
Diamond Dallas Page.
right.
DD
he had
Scott.
he had those blue sparkly the tights on that.
Yeah, he was the white
purple.
trash trailer park hero.
DDP Yoga.
was.
DDP Yoga.
Yeah, shout out to DDP Yoga. You know, you've turned your life around. It's
He
great.
did. He did.
Dude, he helped Scott Hall.
But what is your favorite moment, Wallace?
I'd say probably Hogan turning.
Okay.
For sure. That's the most impactful, and it started everything, you know?
Yeah.
I just love when they jump people and spray painted them. Every one of those moments are the best.
Everyone when Ric Flair got the shit beat out of him.
too. Flair was always getting beat
He was
up.
always getting the brunt of it. He couldn't take it anymore. He got sick, fed up with Eric Bischoff. Like, really? You're going to write me in to get beat up by the NWO? A lot of those guys said that, though. Like, Jericho and all them talking about, like, well, every week it was like, who's getting beat up by the NWO? And, like,
Yeah.
where's this going, you know?
Yeah, it's the same thing because what happened is like the whole crew would just beat the shit out of somebody.
I know,
That was it.
fun though.
Yeah, well, and they actually had, like, Kevin Nash and shit booking at the time. Like,
Yeah.
and he was the one that booked the end of Goldberg's streak. Like, Scott Hall with the cattle prod. That's another
Yeah,
good
it was
one.
a good one. They did, yeah.
it's
He
like,
did
what-
shock his ass.
Yeah, out of nowhere, dude.
Yeah, I loved Hall. He was always ruining it for everything.
Yeah.
Creeping up.
He was always
grabbing
drinking.
ankles.
You know?
Fuck yeah.
I liked it.
Steiner.
You guys forgot about the Ready to Rumble.
What was that?
Oh, the movie? Okay. Yeah,
That was Arquette.
I don't remember that.
Was that
you
when
don't
that
remember
Arquette?
You don't remember when
David
they did
Arquette?
that crazy match?
Oh, the triple cage. Yeah. The three-
Oh shit! Yeah.
to promote their movie.
Who
Yeah.
who was in that
That
match?
was because that was NWO 2000. That was when
That
Jeff
was-
Jarrett was like around.
But that match was so
It
ridiculous.
was insane. It was, for those of you who don't know, it was basically the idea was a cage stacked on top of another cage.
With
It was
a
a
third-
birthday cake of cage.
Yeah.
And it was fucking dangerous and ridiculous, dude. And I remember Jeff Jarrett being involved in that match. I think Mike Awesome at the time was in WCW. And he power bombed someone off that fucking thing, dude.
Did he really?
Rey Mysterio
yeah.
was in that match.
Rey Mysterio.
Mysterio.
Conan
Conan.
was in that match.
Yeah, what the hell was that? It was like the 3 stages of hell or something.
Dude,
I don't.
Arquette.
Yeah, David Arquette.
Yeah. The
You know
downfall
what? That's
of
not actually
WCW.
a bad. It's not really a horrible flick. You know, I mean, it is what it is.
I watch it still if it's.
Yeah, yeah, I'll
if
give it
it's
a
on,
shot.
I'm not gonna.
It's a guilty pleasure.
The downfall of WCW is when David Arquette and Jay Leno won the world title.
But that's.
Oh, that's
God,
another
that
bad
is bad.
booking.
But you know what?
Buzzkill, Shred like that. Logan.
Would you agree with me? Without the NWO,
He's a big 8-legged freaks fan.
without the NWO, Royal Rumble never.
No, Ready to Rumble would have. Yeah, you're
No.
right.
That's how popular that
They-
was. Like
yeah.
they have in Hollywood movies. Like
Yeah, and
Without
do you
the
remember they were on
NWO
the Tonight Show and shit? They took over. Hogan and Bischoff came out and straight up took over the Tonight Show.
No, but we were talking about like you were like, oh, you don't want to like, like how people don't want to profess that they're wrestling.
Right. They don't want to admit it because it's not cool anymore.
But
you know.
what? We all grew up on it.
Right.
So real quick, a little bit of side quest. My buddy, he's he's a film choreographer. He does the choreography for the fight scenes and stuff. And he's like, you wouldn't believe how many people out there like watch wrestling. He's like, I love wrestling. He's like, it's a perfect male soap opera for men. And he's like, I get a lot of my ideas from that stuff too. So it's like, it's funny because people don't admit it, but a lot of people, I guarantee you, low key watch it.
Oh yeah.
On Monday, just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because back in that's what was so, and I miss those days because, like I said, going in high school, you either watched Raw or Nitro or both, and you came in the next day and you were like, man, did you see what happened
You
last
had
night?
so much to talk about.
And it was
the entire
so
week.
cool, dude.
Yep.
Like imagine and they're starting to get like that now with stuff they're doing with the Bullet Club. It's not as it's similar in fashion, but it's nothing will ever compare to the Monday Night Wars. Like that was ridiculous. And the way it ended, was it was pure slop, and we got jacked around on that Invasion pay-per-view and the whole ECW, WCW team, and it was just all B-list guys, like
NWO was the best, dude.
NWO was.
That era
If
was
you
the
guys,
best
we'll go
wrestling
around.
ever.
And Joe, who was your favorite? I mean, obviously, I think I know the answer, but your favorite heel stable, just stale out of all of wrestling that you're aware of.
Like favorite.
I mean, you could say Four Horsemen, DX, NWO, all this.
Yeah, I'd have to go with the Outsiders.
The Outsiders.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
all
my
right.
favorite. That's my favorite.
So NWO is too broad. You would have to narrow it down.
Well, no, you could. I mean, you could say NWO.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm just talking as a whole, a whole unit.
I would say the NWO, but I would also have to say the Outsiders. Like for that, like
Oh, you guys are breaking it down into like a tag team. Then.
Yeah, is that what you're asking?
No, I'm asking as a stable, as a group.
NWO, hands down.
NWO.
So both
Yeah.
NWO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, NWO, unless we're counting ECW when they were trying to do that whole like invasion thing, or not
Okay.
invasion, but yeah. But I would say for the most part,
The original ECW.
yeah, original, yeah.
Okay.
But I would say NWO for sure. 100%.
Harry for hire.
Dangerous Alliance.
Oh, I can respect that. Yeah.
That
Paul,
was
yeah.
my favorite.
Ravishing
Oh my
Rick
God.
Rude,
Steve
Paul
Austin.
Ellering,
Rick Rude
Steve
fan.
Austin,
He was in there.
Arn Anderson,
Arn Anderson was
Larry Zbyszko too, right?
Z-Man.
And then they had Medusa.
Medusa was with a. God.
Dude, that was cool.
Who was it? Who the guy from Rock and Roll Express or the Midnight Express? Bobby Eaton.
Bobby Eaton, beautiful Bobby Eaton. Yeah, yeah.
like-
He was so
and I
ugly,
remember,
but he was
like,
beautiful.
so, about that, like when they would walk in, like the camera work, everything about like their entrance, like they would walk out in a single file line.
Yeah,
And the
dude.
camera would start like at their feet and
Yeah.
just
Word
walk
them up.
along them. You would just see this awesome like parade of like Hall of Famers, and that was
Yeah.
a badass group when Steve Austin still had his hair long.
Yep.
That was-
Stunning Steve.
Yeah.
I like
Stunning
Iron
Steve.
Sheik and Nikolai Volkov's group.
Okay.
What were they? They were like
What were
capitalizing
they?
off
They were-
the Cold War people.
Yeah, yeah, in the 80s.
Yeah.
The Iran and
The fuck is Sheik?
Iran and Russia. Remember
Yeah.
America hated them in the 80s. But what was their group called? I like them.
I don't know if they
They're
what was their tag team name?
I think they just represented the body of like the country of Iran.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Sheik came out with an Iran flag, and then Nikolai Volkov had the Russian
He
flag.
was the Russian bear, dude.
Yeah.
I know we're
Awesome.
like offshooting, but you remember like when Sheik, the whole like Iraq angle with
Oh, the
Lord-
Iraqi sympathizer with
Yeah.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Oh, yeah,
He turned his back. He was NWO before NWO. dude. NATO world order.
Was it Macho? Wait, maybe I'm getting these timelines crossed over, but who was it? Like I keep thinking about that time period where Scepter was smashed into the Warrior's face.
Oh yeah, Macho King. That was with the Macho King. Yeah.
Was that during that timeline we were just talking about?
I think that was around the same time period.
80s?
Like early 90s.
Early 90s?
Yeah.
Like 93,
Because Macho
92.
King started when he won the King of the
And
Ring.
he's with Scary Sherry.
Yep.
That was an awesome time in the night. Texas Tornado.
Yeah, Kerry Von Erich.
Oh my God, I love.
He wrestled with like half a foot for a good long while, and then he killed himself.
British Bulldog was dope too.
British Bulldog was tight.
And he had his brother with him. Didn't his brother die or something?
No,
When you started watching wrestling, like, did you what did you fall in love with? Though? WWE, WCW.
well, I think it's safe to say probably with all of us in this room, WWF. I was watching wrestling at 5 years old. That and like Nightmare on Elm Street and Deep Purple, Frank Zappa.
He had all the toys. I remember you had the
Oh yeah.
the doll things,
Oh my God.
the pillows,
The wrestling buddies,
wrestling
dude.
buddies. Thank you.
The rock solid molds that the WCW had with their character.
I had the Sting, and there's where he's just like this.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
Z-Man.
Fucking chuck it at somebody.
And then Tommy
Break a
Man,
window.
Tommy Zank.
Yeah,
The Z-Man.
yeah, the Z-Man. We dig deep here on JP Dub.
Z-Man was the most generic wrestler, and his like figure was just like white. It was white tights and had a Z on the butt.
Yeah. Man, it's so weird you brought him up because I
Dude,
just
like-
seen something on him not too long ago. The Z-Man, yeah. They had high hopes for him, but it was like,
you know, you're a huge wrestling fan when you're watching documentaries on Tommy Zank or whatever Z-Man. If you're watching fucking documentaries on the Z-Man, dude, that's
yeah.
pretty.
That
obscure,
you're.
man.
I should have known by now, dude's a nerd.
So,
We're all nerds in here though for pro wrestling. It's all good.
are you a fan of Action Bronson?
I like Action Bronson.
You like Action Bronson? I'm gonna play. You know, he's a huge wrestling mark.
Yeah, he
He puts-
chokeholds dudes on stage and shit
But,
when they get out of hand.
So
he
does
has a
Glenn
lot.
Danzig.
He has he has a lot of like wrestling references to his song. He has a song
does.
called like Ron Simmons. Like it's
That's awesome.
I'm gonna give you that before. Do you have okay, I'm gonna give you that album.
He sounds exactly like Ghostface. The only thing, we're getting off subject.
I
but
know, dude.
That's
but I
cool,
think
fuck
you would
it.
like it.
He dissed Ghostface, and he sounds just like Ghostface. So Papa Wu scooped him up at a funeral. A rapper died. I don't remember who, and he's like, "You can't talk about the Wu-Tang like that." And he put him in check. So Action Bronson's like, he was freaked out because the Wu-Tang's like the NWO of hip hop. They will fuck you
Yeah.
up.
Hey, exactly. These motherfuckers will kill you, dude.
And then Ghostface went on YouTube and was like, like he was threatening him on YouTube, like I got my boys, and like
And
we're not.
I mean, Action's from Brooklyn too,
Yeah.
so it's like
hey,
the raw-
we all learned
you
from
don't fuck
Biggie and
with the
Pac.
Wu,
You talk
man.
shit, you get killed.
Get dealt with.
But I'll
Yeah.
give him this though. He makes like in this album, he makes like references to like Marty Jannetty and things like that. So I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like to thank everybody for coming out here today. Big Ed, Harry for Hire, Joey Kane from Musically Meditated Podcast. It may be the first crossover between us, but it's not the last.
Not the last.
Dig it. I'd
Don't
like
start
to,
no shit.
send a shout out to the Green Door Network. If you guys are out there, subscribe on www.greendoornetwork.com or under the Green Door Network on iTunes, Stitcher, any podcast platform. Look up
iTunes.
Juice Pro Wrestling on YouTube. If you'd like to tweet us, you can tweet us at JPDub Podcast on Twitter. You can also tweet Joey at Musically Meditated on Twitter at Music Med Podcast. And
Don't
You
forget
can
about
also
the
check
groups.
out-
Don't forget about the
Oh,
groups.
well, no, we're never going to Juice never forget the groups. Juice Pro Wrestling Universe, as it's now known on Facebook.
It would
that
sound
name.
so much better if you said that in Dusty Rhodes.
The Juice Pro Wrestling Universe.
Just close out the whole podcast.
Yeah, look us up on Facebook. And what's yours for Musically Meditated now?
Musically meditated listeners.
Okay, we'll check that out. And Ed, you got Region Restaurant Reviews?
Yeah, region restaurant reviews for sure.
I don't have
If this is Plug Central right now, you got
Plug
something to plug.
yeah.
Plug it. Plug
Harry for Hire just supports, you don't plug. And we appreciate that.
support this this podcast.
We thank you for that. And I'd like to thank all you guys for coming on. I hope you had a good time.
Hell yeah.
This is a blast.
And this has been Juice Pro Wrestling episode 9 for life. I'd like to thank all my guests. You guys tune in every week on the Green Door Network and keep it for real. Hey, guess what, guys?
Wet 'em up.
Wet 'em up. Wet 'em up. Wet 'em up. Wet 'em up.